Hey, everybody, just finished a podcast with Joe Dolce. Joe Dolce, love the name first off. Great guy. He's been an editor. He's been an editor for some top magazines that probably all of us have heard about. But he's traveled the world and really educated not only himself, but others about the benefits of cannabis and what it can do, why it's medicine, and how it's helping others. He has a book called Brave New Weed. He's doing some other things in this industry, which is education, which is my passion, but education not only for the patients, but education for the dispensary owners. And he has an announcement to make. You'll see it in this podcast. So hopefully you like us, share it, throw your comments down there, as well as subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you soon. Enjoy this podcast. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, John Malanca here, United Patients Group, Be Informed and Be Well. And we have, what do you want to say? Some alumni in the industry here. Joe Dolce. Welcome, Joe. I know you're in New York, cold, but not sunny, but snowy day in New York.
It is sunny and it is cold.
It is
and
cold.
I wish I was in California, but
yeah?
I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, I think everybody wishes they were different places right now.
That's right.
You know, with all this too. So, welcome. I know you've done a lot in. You've been an editor-in-chief for certain magazines, but you've also written a book, Brave New World. You want to talk about
Brave New Weed? It's Brave New Weed. Aldous Huxley wrote Brave New World. Okay, I'm not quite that old.
We'll go right back then too. Sorry, I was ad-libbing on that. 3, 2, and 1. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is John Malanca, United Patient Group, Be Informed and Be Well. And we have a alumni in the cannabis industry, Joe Dolce. Joe, love the name first off.
Thank you, John. I didn't do anything to deserve it. My dad gave it to me.
Little dolce, little desserts, little sweetness, I guess, huh? I bet you've had fun in your life with that.
For me, it's more agrodolce, a little more bittersweet.
Okay, bittersweet. You know what? You're a New Yorker. That's why.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Well, good. So you're an author. You've been an editor-in-chief for some magazines. You want to share a little about your background? And we're going to talk about cannabis. You traveling the world, you bringing some stigmas down, the social, medical, legal, as well as the different ramifications, and then what you're doing currently.
So sure, of course I will. You're right. I was a journalist for my entire career when there were magazines.
Yeah.
I edited Details magazine. It was a men's style magazine in the 1990s. And I was a contributing editor to Gourmet and to Playboy. And I stopped that about 10 years ago. And around 2013, I was having lunch with my lawyer one day, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm not really doing much. I'm a little lost. Actually, I'm a little lost in my career. In fact, I'm smoking a lot of pot. I've just rediscovered pot at this point." He said, "Oh, damn, I love pot." I said, "Bob, I never knew." My lawyer was about 76 at the time, right? And he'd been my entertainment lawyer for many years. I said, "I never knew." He said, "Oh yeah, it's ridiculous what the government is doing. It's all stupid. I've been supporting NORML for 20 years, and I won't even travel to a hotel where I can't open the window and smoke a joint." I thought, wow, this is amazing. I never knew this. He said, "You should write a book about this, Joe." And I said, "Write a book about what? It's just pot." He said, "Look into it." So I did. Actually, it was that year was the 25th anniversary of the High Times Cannabis Cup, and I booked myself a ticket to Amsterdam to go to that cup. And it was terrible. It was a real bummer. It was raining every day. It was freezing. It was set up in this big drafty hall. And I'm walking around with a notebook, and I'm the only guy with no beard. And everybody thought he's a narc. So I was not the most popular guy in town, that's for sure. Anyway, I had a really crummy time there. And at the end of it, I ran into this guy. He said, "What was your experience like?" I said, "I didn't have a great time." He said, "Yeah, man, the lights are going out here. You should come visit me in Denver."
Oh, you're like, okay, I'll go.
And I did. I said, "Okay, sure. Give me your address. Let's see what happens." So I wrote him some emails, and he invited me. And he turns out his name is Adam Dunn. And Adam was at the forefront of this hash oil making operation, Colorado was just about to legalize, and he was sort of the center of the action. Everybody stopped in his place. I mean, people who are making oils, people who are making Incredibles chocolate, all this stuff that has become really big was just beginning. And there I was, and I'm a writer and a reporter, and I'm thinking, this is amazing. And so I was learning all this stuff about, I didn't know anything about dabs and hash oils and extraction. I didn't know any of this stuff. It was brand new. And there I was in the catbird seat. So I spent about 5 or 6 days with Adam and had a fantastic time and thought, oh, maybe there's a book here. Maybe there's a book here. This is really interesting. And on the last day, he said to me, it's time you did a dab. And I said, okay, let's do it. I've been inhaling secondhand smoke the whole time I'm reporting, right? But I hadn't actually taken advantage of it. And I did this dab. And have you ever done a dab, John?
I've never done a dab. And the people that I always see, and I've been to Colorado conferences where they outdoor and they said, I'm a scuba diver as well. And it says never dive alone. But the signs at these conferences are never dab alone.
Dab alone.
Yeah.
Well, I knew at that point that you're supposed to give a dab is like a quinoa size amount of this very concentrated hash oil. They gave me, I would say, a rice size amount. And I wasn't clocking it at all. And I just inhaled the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I exhaled an endless cloud. And when we then went out to dinner. And the ride there was fine. And we get into the restaurant and I'm sitting at the bar with Adam. And I'm looking at the menu, and I swear to you, man, the page was going like, it was wobbling. Okay, I couldn't focus on the page. And then I felt the floor wobbling.
Yeah.
And I thought, this isn't going to end well at all. And I had to go outside, and basically I puked for a terrible 30 minutes. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. And then I came back and I said, you got to take me home. I'm not handling it. Whatever's going on, I don't know what's going on. I got to go home.
Enjoying this.
This was no fun at all. We got in the car. I had to stop twice on the way back to the hotel so I could stick my head out the door and more on the street, make another mess. And I had a very uncomfortable night. And I woke up and I started Googling because I thought, wait, cannabis is anti-nausea. Like people in AIDS took cannabis to help their nausea. How could this happen? This is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And you know what? I couldn't find an answer.
Well, it's there. It's called hyperemesis.
Well, it wasn't there in 2014.
Oh, really?
I promise you. Yeah. But I did find an article that a guy named Raphael Meshulam, whose name was who I was starting to get to know, had written about this possible reaction. And he happened to be at Hebrew University. And believe it or not, I wrote him a letter. And I said, this happened. Can I come visit you? Because I really don't understand. And he said, yes, come. And then I thought, you know what? I think I have a book here. And that's how it began. I went to Israel and I spent time with the scientists and the researchers. I went to a nursing home where they were treating patients. Yeah. My whole world just opened up, right? It went from this little dark back room in Colorado into Hebrew University research, right? And I thought,
well, really having a meeting with your lawyer saying, how are you doing? You're like, not too good. I'm lost.
I'm lost.
And sometimes that's how life is. That's the way I look at life. If I can get one, we've been to conferences. If we meet one person, I know that makes sense. I go, okay, it was a success.
It was worth it.
So you being over there in Amsterdam, you're like, this sucks. I don't want to be here. And the guy said, how do you like it? Well, you got to come to Colorado. I mean, look at that.
Follow. So sometimes you have to follow the thread, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I began this exploration, right? And so I got HarperCollins to pay me to continue traveling around the world. I was lucky. And I wrote my book and it came out. It got reviewed in the New York Times, which doesn't happen often for a book on pot. And I got very interested in the topic. And what happened, I realized, was I wrote this book and it was pretty comprehensive, but a lot of the research and a lot of the information I knew wasn't in the book. It was not, this book was written to be fun. It was narrative nonfiction. It was meant to be a journey. It wasn't meant to be a medical tome or a scientific, volume. So I thought, you know what? I know a whole lot. And when I was on book tour, a doctor came up to me and she said, I read your book. And I said, oh, great. What do you think? She said, I love it. I want to start an education program. And I said, for who? She said, for patients, for healthcare providers, and for people who work in dispensaries. And I said, well, let's do it. I have all this information. Let's do it. So we created something called medicalcannabismentor.com, which is online education that trains those three groups, plus pharmacists, plus nurses. We have profession-specific courses. And that's what I've been doing for a couple of years now.
Good.
Very good. And we're just on the verge of creating a really interesting app that includes education and product recommendations that dispensaries can give to their patients for free, so they can actually guide, monitor, and titrate, adjust their doses accordingly to how they're feeling. And nothing like this exists. So I'm very, very, very excited to pull this forward now.
You know, it's neat. Excuse me. It's needed. I truly, I mean, I'm out here in California. Cannabis has been legal since 1996 out here at the medical level. And so, but the stigma's still there. You know, every day, you know, I speak with patients who call and say, help, which way do I go? What question do I ask?
do? Yeah, what do I do?
And you mentioned dispensaries. You know, we've done a lot of conferences. My wife, Corinne, or late wife, Corinne, you know, we would do a lot of conferences, and education has always been key. So I love it that you're doing that. And we would try to educate at all levels, not only at the patient level, the medical level, and the government level, but at the dispensary level. Because you mentioned dispensary, I don't feel confident sending my mom down there or my grandmother down there. You know, when chances are, no disrespect to dispensary workers, they could be they could have been working at Starbucks last week, and this week they're selling medicine, you know, to a patient. You don't know if I'm diabetic. You don't know if I have a heart arrhythmia. You don't know if I have a whole list of other slew of things. So that's why I truly believe a doctor should always be involved. What are your thoughts on that? I know you're working with a doctor putting this. Is that, you know, some doctors say, yeah, try it, trial and error. If you get too much. In your case, you know, dab, have you done another dab since?
I have.
Wow.
Rarely. Okay, you know, occasionally I've learned to moderate my dose, though. I've learned to, you know, now I know what to look for, certainly. Yeah, and I've enjoyed it. But I've also had terrible bouts of vomiting for about 3 or 4 years after that point. So I really changed my consumption habits. I moved more to edibles. I moved more to vaporizing that I could control more. I really had to sort of change it up a bit, which is fine and great. As a matter of fact, that's the great thing about cannabis, is you can have different effects when you change the method of administration. So I've learned a lot. But I work with Dr. June Chin, and June is a really interesting doctor. You may know her. She trained in California in the 90s and in the early part of 2000s. And she ended up treating over 10,000 patients. And because she's so smart, she kept all that data.
Oh, good.
So she has the thing that nobody else has, which is data on 10,000, now more than 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 patients over a long span of time. What conditions they had, what they used, how it integrates with your diet and your exercise routine. She's an integrative physician, so she looks at the whole being and the whole life, not just take these pills, right? Yeah. So I have spoken to I actually think that June is the exception, and integrative physicians tend to be the exception also. The medical profession will probably be the last people to come on to a botanical medicine like cannabis. It's too Wild West for them. They don't understand self-dosing, even though they do understand self-dosing, because they all prescribe insulin, they all prescribe SSRI drugs, all these drugs. If you've ever taken antidepressants, you know you have to spend a month, maybe 2, adjusting that dose. And you, the patient, is the one that says, oh, I feel happy. Oh, I don't feel happy. Oh, I feel fantastic. You know, you're the one who decides. Not the doctor needs you to tell him, which is exactly the same as a botanical medicine, except doctors, they don't want to go there. They just don't want to go there.
Yeah, it's too bad. You know, they're starting, you know, our doctors are, my personal doctor for the past 10 plus years has been naturopaths, you know, and and I'm a big fan of naturopaths. I do a lot of work in the integrative oncology world as well, even before my wife became ill, we would always speak at these events, and it's nice to see doctors open-minded. And we've even run into doctors that work for major cancer institutions here in the U.S. that have called and said, hey, I made a promise to this family that I would research cannabis. And so I always share with all of our viewers that even if you live in a legal state or in an illegal state, it's not illegal to ask that question. This is your body, your health. Ask your doctor. And if they don't know, say, hey, doc, can you refer me to someone who may? And I guarantee nowadays, 2020, almost 2021, every doctor knows somebody, that can, and now the internet. I mean, I know there's a lot of information out there. There's good information, but a lot of
pretty
bad.
Tricky. Yeah, it's pretty tricky on the internet, I think. I mean, but the problem is most doctors, I mean, my issue is that most doctors, it's complicated for them. They're overworked. They've got a ton of information coming at them. The insurance system does not allow for a lot of patient consultation hours. So that's what we hope to do with this app.
Cool.
Which is really help to train patients so the doctor doesn't have to repeat the same information over and over and over again. That's not efficient. And in our medical world, it's never going to work, right? No one's going to spend an hour time after time after time talking about how to titrate your dose of medical cannabis, right? Or what works and what doesn't work. So
it's definitely needed. And I appreciate what you're doing, because like I said, there's some good and great-minded people in this industry.
There are.
Doing this. Not taking away anything about you, but talking about June. Did she have what led her into cannabis? I know she something. It was pain or something like that.
Yeah, she had a condition that I can never pronounce. It's an arthritis of the spine. She was an athlete when she was in her teens.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was in her residency, she was in the OR. She was having a really hard time standing up.
Yeah.
Like, because, you're watching an operation for 5 hours, you got to stand up for 5 hours. And one of the doctors she was working with noticed this and said, what's going on? And she said, I think it's called ankylosing spondylitis, something like that. And he said, look, try this. And she looked at it. She said, look, I'm from the Bronx. What is this? And he said, it's marijuana, but it's not marijuana. It's something called, believe it or not, he had CBD back then. And certain patients of mine have used it for pain relief. And she said, she tells me this a lot. I went home, it was a Friday. I waited till Friday. I took it. I was expecting to get ripped off my butt, and I didn't. But what happened was the pain went away. So she kept using it, and still does, and really adjusted her entire medical practice to accommodate this botanical medicine. It really changed the course of her practice.
Yeah, and again, just like the course of your life and your writings. I mean, look where you are now. From traveling the world to doing this with
to banging my head against the wall, trying to get dispensaries to educate their bud tenders and personnel. Yes, that's what I'm doing, John. Should I be traveling the world instead?
Only in New York, are you reaching out to, because it's difficult. I hear what you're saying, but this is 6 years ago we would have our conference, and we did our first conference, I believe. And God, 7 years ago, 13. And we invited, and so we'd have about 85-90% of our attendees were medical professionals not in the cannabis industry.
No, right.
That wanted to come, and we would do it at almost like a college lecture. We do it at colleges, and the doctor's like, okay, I'm on the fence. What's this stuff? I don't want to walk. And it's not, nothing wrong. Those high times cannabis conferences are fun, and I think everyone should attend one just to see what it's like. I mean, it just blows your mind. But the doctors didn't want to go to that, and then so that's why we set it up for them. They can walk in like a normal conference and do that. But when you're there,
and you're hearing the likes of Ethan Russo or Dee Dee Meyer or
they've spoken.
They make it safe for doctors to listen. They're presenting research, they're presenting studies, they're presenting evidence. It's I think doctors like to talk to doctors, basically.
Well, they do. But we would invite the dispensary owners and workers in.
Great.
We would have 5 of them that would show up.
Yeah.
And so, it's so needed. And so I think what you're doing is fantastic. And hopefully they see that light, because as this industry grows, still not seeing it.
Here's what I think is going to happen. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think most dispensaries don't care about medical. Even if they say they care about medical, they obviously don't care about medical. The money is in adult use. And I think what's missing is this idea of health and wellness. And I think if dispensaries would maybe reorient themselves a little bit to being health and wellness places where you can buy cannabis, but maybe you can buy other supplements too. Maybe you could buy ashwagandha, or you could buy melatonin for sleep, or magnesium, or whatever it is. There's a million of them. You might be able to create a business where people feel quite comfortable coming to solve a problem. Because what I think is a lot of people use cannabis for a quote medical or health and wellness reason, but aren't aware of it. So, and this was true for myself when I was younger. I know why I smoked. I was anxious. I was a really anxious boy, young adult. Let's put it that way. I was, though, and I was not so aware. I wasn't so conscious of it.
Yeah.
Right. Many 50-minute hours since, I'm much more aware of how I deal with stress and anxiety now. But back then I didn't really have the tools. And the tool I found was actually cannabis. It was a great stress reliever. It blocked out a lot of the hassle that my own brain was causing me. And I think a lot of people use cannabis in the same way. They don't really know that maybe they're treating an issue or a condition, right? And it could be sleep, it could be stress, it could be pain, it could be lots of things, really. IBS, we all know all the things that it ameliorates, all the conditions it ameliorates. So I think that if if a dispensary, this is my big idea, was to do health and wellness, that it would really find a market. And it would find a market for people who don't want to go into a marijuana dispensary.
It's a few years ago, I worked with a lot of pharmacists, and I gave them a tour of how to become a legal patient, and it just blew their mind, because before recreational, they had to come to the office, and I said, okay, we're doing online, and they sat there and they're okay, and it says, okay, Bill, we received your application and payment, and so the email came through. Okay, Bill, we're reviewing it, and so they're sitting there waiting. Okay, Bill, you've been approved, and they look at me and they said, no one came on. I said, that's how easy to get a cannabis recommendation in the state of California. Now, let's go print this out, and I'll take you through San Francisco, and we'll do the good, the bad, and the ugly of dispensaries. And exactly that, the good, the bad, the ugly. Some people would say TCH, some people would say CDB. I'm thinking, that's my biggest pet peeve. I'm from the magazine industry as well. Spelling errors is one of my biggest pet peeves, and it drives me nuts when I see companies in this industry that misspell marijuana, misspell cannabis, and misspell CBD. And I see it all the time, and I'm thinking, come on, guys, let's take this a little seriously. But there are some in the San Francisco Bay Area that offer acupuncture, massage.
It's true.
Hot tea. You can go in there, get hot tea, and relax. I am a fan of supplements. I take a lot of supplements, so that's not happening. So I think you need better joedolce.com /
Cannabis health and wellness.
Cannabis health and wellness, which unfortunately is not hangnails and hiccups are a qualified condition, but health and wellness in a lot of states is not there. And I'm thinking, come on, bring the body back to balance, as you were talking about. Let's avoid, if you lose out a night of sleep. We've all had that. Next day, you're groggy, you're brain fog, anxiety, depression, mood disorders, pain for a lot of patients. But if you fix that one, the domino effect can help. And I'm a big fan of health and wellness. And
it's usually sleep. That's what we have found, is that the hardest condition, the one that's underlying many of them, is if you're not sleeping well, you're really not a happy puppy.
Yeah.
You're really not happy. So we try to bring this information to the world, and it's going to be slow. It's not going to happen as quickly as you or I think it should happen. That's the fact. There's a lot of structural resistance here on so many levels, And And I don't think, I'm not blaming dispensaries. I mean, they've got to make their money. They've got to recoup their investment. It's a hard thing to do, but I just don't think the market is advanced or mature, let's say
Yeah.
mature enough to realize the incredible opportunity it has.
The conversation has been there, but nothing's been taken. They haven't followed up on it. The dispensaries, I mean, like you said, yeah, where they make their money is a recreational. You go in there Friday and you go in there Saturday to refill what you grabbed on Friday. Where a senior citizen, or another patient shows up every month, and so where's their moneymaker? The moneymaker is the regular cannabis user coming in. Nothing wrong with that.
Well,
But I do think there should be a place, and I think the education should be.
Listen, somebody needs to remind them that
Yeah.
people with medical conditions are regular purchasers.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, whatever condition you have, if it works, you're going to go back and you're going to go back and you're going to go back.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what we hope to do, is really
and it's essential business. Even throughout those COVID, it is an essential business. And I know they fought that at first. They weren't letting people, keeping dispensaries open here, at least in California. And they fought it and they fought it and they won. And I think it's important. I think, the stress level and the anxiety, what's happening happening to a lot of people, not only here in California, but globally, they have turned to exercising, health and wellness, and cannabis.
Cannabis has had a great year. Let's face it.
Yeah. So with what you're doing now, do you see that trickling out back overseas, where you spend a lot of time? I know you really can't we can't travel as much as you and I probably did in our past. What are you seeing?
Well, I could speak small and I could speak big. So we're producing courses now for China, which is amazing, because that's a country that actually does have a history of using botanical medicine, even though there's a terrible cultural stain on all sorts of drugs. And I think it's related to the opium wars of the 1890s, basically, when Chinese immigrants were much maligned as opium users. And there was a lot of racism to get the Chinese out, to push them out, both in Canada and the United States, all across North America, actually. So I think the Chinese still suffer from that stigma, right? We just applied to be the official course providers of the country of New Zealand, which just is beginning a medical program right now. We are producing courses for England, which is interesting. They have terrible laws there. I mean, everything is illegal basically, except for a little bit of CBD.
And they've changed that number. It used to be, just until recently, it was 0.2%. And I think just in the last 2-3 weeks, they changed it to 0.3. What did they change it to?
I think they downsized it to 1. Yeah, I can't remember. 1 milligram. If it has more than 1 milligram of THC per product, no matter how big the product is or how small, it's illegal. Whatever. I mean, the laws are so random, right?
Yeah.
And we're also producing courses for Brazil and hopefully for Germany.
Good.
So I see that there is there's obviously need. We know there's need. And it seems to depend on how the country itself is treating it. Like Germany, it's available through pharmacies. Different countries have different methods of distribution, right?
Yeah.
Like we're doing one for Canada too. Canada is interesting because CBD is still illegal in Canada.
Still illegal.
Illegal, because regulatory. They think of CBD as a food supplement, not as anything else. So the regulatory process of approval for food supplements takes 3 years. So CBD has been the last to come online in Canada, interestingly enough, right?
The UK was like that, where it was food. Their FDA, I guess, is disapproved. You being a writer, disapproved. I guess it is a word.
That's a word.
But it's gone from food, health product, food, and I think it's back to a health product now. Let me tell you quick. You said opium. So my grandparents, my mom's dad is from Hamburg, Germany. My mom's mom's family is from Spain, and they were in business together, import-exporting, going back from Spain and Germany to Asia with the textiles from Europe. And I just found out a few years ago that on the way back, and this is not, British Airways flying over to, you'll be there in 12 hours. This is 3 months plus. But the ships were filled with textiles. And on the way home, I just found this out, opium.
Of course.
They brought the opium back. And
of
so
course.
I was like, wow, I guess,
Opium was a medicine, remember?
Yeah. Yeah. But that was kind of I was like, wow, that's family history I never knew about. And in 1985, my grandfather here in San Francisco had colon cancer. And his doctor in San Francisco, and I didn't realize, my mom shared this with me probably about 10 years ago. She goes, your grandfather's doctor in San Francisco in the 80s said, I want you to try marijuana then. And my grandfather looked at me, he said, you're out of your mind. I've been against drugs my whole life. And, now you want to give me marijuana? Give me some morphine, type of thing. And I was like, God, who was that doctor? That doctor was way ahead of his or her time. And she goes, I didn't know. But it's funny how it's, like you said, it's been a medicine here for years. And they stopped, 83 years ago in
1937.
83 years ago.
37 is when they stopped it. Yeah. It always has been. And look, obviously, California, I mean, you're so lucky. It's just grown everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, like Wizard of Oz, we have the golden trailway. Yeah, no, everybody has a marijuana grow in their backyard. No, it's not like that. But that's what everyone thinks, and everyone thinks in Colorado that it is everywhere as well. And that's funny because the county I live in doesn't have any brick and mortars, but the county 3 minutes from here allows 99 plants and brick and mortars. So each county, and I always share that with families, know what county, just because you live in a legal state doesn't mean that all that same law transitions into every county that you live in. And I know, New York, I lived in New York for years, and New York is very strict, even on a joint. I mean, I had buddies that got busted outside Madison Square Garden getting ready to go see a concert. Next thing you know,
not these days.
they missed the concert and they're stuck in the paddy wagon. And he's thinking, man, oh man, what, and that's it, and it's on his record, still to this day. So, what share some stories about you going overseas. I know Amsterdam, used to be, is what you said, the hub for medical cannabis or cannabis. I lived in Belgium, and so we would go to Amsterdam. I haven't been to Israel, and I think it's great because I've never spoken to Raphael Mechoulam, but I hear, reach out. People.
Well, he's a very welcoming man. I believe he's 91 now.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. So that was interesting. Israel, is a tormented place, obviously, for so many reasons. But what's really interesting is that Jerusalem, which is where Hebrew University is this like solemn, religious, full of Orthodox people, sort of for me, I'm agnostic. I don't practice any religion. It's a very depressing place. It's very solemn. And then you go to Tel Aviv, which is on the sea and on the water and very gay and very friendly and very colorful. And it's a cloud of cannabis smoke. And
wow.
It is like being in two completely different countries. Yeah. And everybody in Tel Aviv is growing. It's everywhere. It's not a problem to get it. So Israel was really interesting in that way. And then what was really fascinating is at the time when I was there, they had started a nursing home south of Tel Aviv that was using medical cannabis for patients with dementia. And I don't know if you've ever been in a nursing home for people with dementia. They are pretty terrible places. There's a lot of agony and suffering and screaming and crying, and you just don't want to be there very long. This place was quiet and cheerful, and it was amazing to walk through. And I met this one guy who was in his 90s, and he had been a Holocaust survivor, and he escaped Germany and lived in a chicken coop in France for 2 years, escaping the Nazis. His name was Moshe Roth, and he was now in this nursing home. He didn't have dementia, but he had something else going on. So we sat and we talked. And as we were talking, of course, he's smoking a spliff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how are they consuming? Because I always see
This was
videos on
again
the
not 2014, so
Yeah.
they were all smoking, and
and
you know,
quality stuff, not like the stuff that our government's giving to the
I wouldn't call it great stuff. No,
Yeah.
the cannabis in Israel is not fantastic at all,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, probably better than definitely better than what's grown in the University of Mississippi,
Yeah.
certainly. But I started saying, so what are you doing all day? What are you doing for day? He said, well, I listen to music now. I've rediscovered music. I couldn't listen to it before. And I paint. And I said, well, show me what your paintings are. And I walk into his room, and I'm telling you, floor to ceiling, there were paintings of chickens.
Chickens.
Chickens. This is a guy who hid in a chicken coop in his adolescence. That was quite amazing. And also his wife ended up visiting while I was there. And she said to me, look, I put him in this nursing home because I couldn't stand him. Like, we couldn't talk to each other. It was a nightmare. But now he's a nice guy. So, for that, that was pretty revelatory to see that in action. And I also had an experience with my own mother, who was extremely anti-cannabis when I was growing up, needless to say, and sort of maintained that stance pretty much throughout her life. But when she was in her 90s, she lost her sight to macular degeneration. And she was living with my sister, and she was depressed. She was just depressed. She was living in darkness, and no matter what we did, she wasn't having it.
Yeah.
She wasn't really taking it on. So I brought a pain patch back from Colorado many years ago, and I cut it into quarters. And I told my sister, I said, we're going to put this on Mom and see what happens. So we put it on, and sure enough, I mean, my sister called me the next day, and I said, what's going on? She said, well, she's dancing. She's singing to Tony Bennett, who was her favorite.
Yeah.
And she did the dishes today. And I said, oh, great. So the pain patch is working. And she said, yeah, but we're taking her off. And I said, why? And she said, Joe, you break her, you bought her. It's like, we can't afford to have her fall. And I thought, all right, what can I say? You're right. I couldn't take my mom. She couldn't live with me in New York. So it was good that she was living there. And that was that. And that was the determination. But it was so great to see that, you could put this pain patch on. And I said to her, Mom, she said, what is it? And I said, it's cannabis. And she said, what's that? And I was like, marijuana. She said, no. I said, just see what it's like. You don't have to smoke anything. And she loved it.
It's funny you say smoke. When you're sharing that story with the patches. I speak at retirement communities I haven't in a while, but I used to do that on a regular basis. But I used to ask how many people used to think the only way to consume is via smoking. You'd have 90% of the room. Right. Then we'd go back there a few months later and talk again. I'd ask him, and they'd look at me like, hey, dummy, give us a real question. Because that demographic has educated themselves so much.
Yeah.
And because of all the different products, patches, which I'm a big fan of, vaporization, topicals, tinctures. And so the stigma of, our mom's generation of, is what they know is smoking bad. And it's too bad that because there are a lot of studies, and I work with a lot of patients that have had success with macular degeneration and cannabis. I mean, that was one of the first approved conditions in California.
Okay, macular degeneration?
Well, glaucoma, excuse me.
Glaucoma, yeah.
But it's taking the pressure off the eyes. But we've had a lot of patients that have had success with macular degeneration and glaucoma, of course, with that. And this one gentleman, he does actually a lot. He's here in California, but does a lot in New Zealand. And New Zealand's, we've done a lot of work. They've actually brought us on to speak to their Zoom call with their parliament probably back in 2014. They've been wanting to do a lot, and so I applaud you for doing that.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of.
You said Bronx, but you said mom wasn't in New York. Where does she live?
My mother was in Maine with
okay.
with one of my sisters.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So
one of the other funny things I remember. Do you know Mara Gordon?
Of course.
Okay, so she makes Aunt Zelda's. So I visited her when Aunt Zelda's was but a glint in her eye. She was living in so I guess you would call it like an adult community. Walnut Creek, right? Yeah.
So just to give you an example, Mara. I met Mara and Stuart 2010 or 11. And we've done a lot together. She's spoken at our conference numerous times. She's, she was at our wedding. And so I've known Mara that now, they moved a while back. But anyway, go on. But I know exactly. I've been, I know Mara.
Well, she's become, a bit of a star in the world of cannabis for making great products and also having a few opinions.
Having a few opinions.
Having a few
Well,
opinions. Yes.
I'm gonna share because I know Mara. She always says, "So perfect, Mara. I love you. You hear me right here. I love you." But Mara says, "I'm speaking at your conference, right?" Okay, Mara, would you like to speak at the conference? I'm coming to your wedding, right? Yes. Would you like to come to my wedding? She goes, "I'm just that Jewish grandmother that you don't have." And I said, "Okay." So yes, I know Mara very well.
So when I met her, she and her partner, husband,
Yeah.
Stuart, were making cannabis medicines for the elders who lived in this community. They were making it in a electric fry pan in their kitchen, and they were distilling it in the chimney in the living room, and the smell was going up over the golf course, right?
Yeah.
And when so when the smell of cannabis oil was going up, all the elders would come and knock on the door and say, "Okay, what have you got? Like, let's see." And they would, they knew about Purple Kush, and they knew about this one and that, and they knew all the different strains that were available right then and there in California. And it was really unusual for me to see people with visors and big sunglasses, the look, sweat clothes,
Yeah.
coming in and looking at different strains and smelling it and actually having a really educated opinion about it. It was a complete revelation to me.
When my father-in-law was ill, it was the blind leading the blind when we went down. I mean, it was 2011. There was night and day from what it was, where it was then and today. Labeling, there was no labeling. It was like cannabis, and the only reason we went with that coconut oil capsule was because I knew I could freeze it and cut it in slivers, because there are other items that were non-smokables were said, "Oh, one dose. Well, it's enough to feed the New York Giants," type of thing.
Right.
And so we did that for the first 6 months with the coconut oil capsule, still 3 milligrams, nothing big. And then Corinne and I, got to know people in this industry. And then Mara started doing her stuff. Anyway, but we were using Mara's oil for my father-in-law because it's not a one size fits all. It was a 4-to-1 ratio of THC to CBD. And so for a lot of our listeners out there, THC is not bad. And I know the CBD market is boomed, and everyone thinks I want the medical part of the cannabis plant, which is CBD, and I don't want the recreational, which is
It's just not true. It's just all wrong. That's
yeah,
complete nonsense.
and I share this all the time. I know for a fact my father-in-law would not be here today if he just used CBD. And so the THC for him worked, and
Well, as we say, that THC and CBD are like Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. They fight each other, but they work together. When they work together, they're best. And I know that doesn't not all young people understand that metaphor, but it's really true. When they combine, it seems, and the evidence is pretty clear, THC activates something in CBD, and at the same time, CBD moderates some of the psychoactivity of THC. So they are a good combination, and it's really cool to find the right ratio for you.
For you, exactly, for you. And
it's not that hard to do. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, we had to find that sweet spot, and we were very fortunate that it was trial and error, and we didn't have any error. And it was at that point the blind leading the blind, and now there are like June with her 10,000 cases, I should say. She can see what's going on, because I mean, I've worked with other seniors like my father-in-law, stage 4 lung cancer metastasized to his brain, who've had success with a 1-to-1 ratio. Where he was a 4-to-1 ratio. So this is why I always say a doctor should be involved, to go over this, the age and weight and the current health condition and the sensitivity of the patient, other medications you may be on, other modalities you may be doing, chemoradiation. I'm never going to say cannabis. I'll never say cure, but I never want to give anybody false hope. But you can use this in conjunction with other things. We hear this, and I don't know if you do. I'm certain June does as well. But I'll try. If this doesn't work, then I'll try cannabis. If chemoradiation doesn't work, then I'll try cannabis. If my medications for my seizures don't work, or anxiety, and that doesn't work, I'll try cannabis. And in a lot of cases, you can combined, and that's why I believe a doctor should be involved as well to, one, help with titration and as well as sensitivities. And so, are you working more on the educational side with the dispensaries, or do you work with patients and direct them as well?
We don't work with patients directly. I mean, June has a patient population that she works with. I'm not a doctor, so it's not really my interest. I do I do a lot medical cannabis mentor. We just got CME approval, so we're now our courses are now being brought out to healthcare practitioners. They can get credits for it. I do the Brave New Weed podcast. I do it we release every 2 weeks. So I still have my hand in lots of cannabis stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously we're trying to build this. We are building this app that we are about to take out to dispensaries and certain pharmacies in various parts of the world come the new year. So awesome. The technology is there. We just have to really now introduce it to the world. That's what I've been really working on for the last year, basically.
Good.
Is putting that together.
You've had a lot of, you've had not too many distractions of, come on, Joe, get in the plane, meet me here. You've been homebound. And
I've actually not been homebound, John. Actually, my COVID has taken me to many places for lots of reasons, but maybe we'll talk about that on the next podcast. I'm one of the ones that has actually been in 4 locations since COVID began. Not by choice. It started because I was working and staying in Mexico City, and I had to leave. I had to leave, but I didn't want to come back to New York, and I didn't really want to go to San Francisco in March, so I had to find somewhere else to go, and I did. And it's just been a very interesting. I've had an interesting experience in COVID. That's not putting it. I've actually had a great experience in COVID because it's put me to places that I hadn't planned to be.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's been this crazy adventure, and I've been able to sustain myself because I work remotely.
Yeah.
On everything I do, I've been able to keep up everything going. I mean, there were, March and April, I would say pretty much brain fog, not really present in those months. But I was able to catch back up in starting about May, I think. Reality started coming back and my brain started functioning again.
My dad's birthday is January 8th, and he passed away a few years ago. So on June 4th, I said to my mom, Mom, what do you want to do for Dad's birthday? And she looks at me and I go, it's the 4th. And she goes, it's June. I'm like, oh my gosh. So
we lost time.
I was in brain fog as well. And so so you're back in New York. When did you get back up there?
I came back to New York in August.
In August, okay.
Yes.
Okay. You said 4 different countries, or 4 areas.
4 different places. I was in Mexico City. I was in Tucson, Arizona. I was in San Francisco. And the 4th place was back home in New York.
Yes. Well, welcome back home. Your app, it's not out yet, but iOS and
it'll be iOS and Android. It will be for enterprise as well as other applications. You can find out. You can call me at medicalcannabismentor.com. You can find me there, or you can email me through that, or through the bravenewweed.com website, or that's the podcast channel as well. I'm very, very reachable.
Yeah.
And we really want to talk about it because we really want to alert business people to the possibilities here.
Cool. Well, we'll definitely help you with that. I see your tag on your screen right there is Joe at joedolce.com. What's on the joedolce.com that our followers can find you about that?
Well, that's a whole other business. I support myself in my cannabis exploits because I'm a speechwriter and a presentation coach. Mm-hmm. So I teach people how to speak in public. I work with people who are raising capital. I help people put together their decks. I help people speak to the media, and I help people speak to other people, really, to speak in public.
It's important. It's important, I think, to have a good friend of mine, Mike Hyde in Montana. He's an incredible speaker. I said, how'd you do that? He goes, man, I used to be terrified. He goes, do you know how I did? I go, what? He goes, karaoke. He's like, can't sing, but to break down up there and sing and just do it like no one's watching and no one's listening. He goes, that built my confidence. And he has traveled, and his son actually was the first and youngest legal cannabis patient in the whole United States, Cash Hyde.
Wow.
Cash Hyde, and he beat cancer twice. And they are out of Montana, and then the laws changed in Montana. And Cashy at age 4 said, "No more pokes, no more pokes." And and so his mom and dad, but Cash's parents, Mike and Callie Hyde, um, uh, they have their 4 beautiful children, in a tight family. But so when I hear people public speaking, which is difficult for a lot of people,
Many of us, many.
I think about Mike saying, "Man, karaoke, go up there and start
That's
singing."
one way. I'll tell you, I just to stick on the cannabis topic, I've also recommended CBD to many of my clients.
Yeah.
If you take it for an extended period of time, it does help you combat stress. I mean, there's many things we talk about. There's many techniques you can use to combat stress, but I think for some people, they're so anxious just to stand up and talk to people. I find that CBD actually helps to level set them a bit. Not everybody, obviously,
Yeah.
but with some people, it really helps to just take the edge off and like, okay, let's focus a little bit here. The other thing I say to people who are nervous speakers is, if you can get your mind around this, it's really helpful. It's really not about you. It's about the audience. It's what you have to give to the audience. Aristotle taught me that, actually. We were on a conference call a few centuries ago, and he told me that it's never about you. It's always about that audience. You got to put them first. And those are wise. Aristotle, he was really smart.
Well, that's a good friend to have, and you look pretty damn good for being a few hundred years old. It must be your lifestyle and the CBD that you're
Thank
talking.
you. Yes, exactly. My stress-free life, John.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So what's happening for you in this upcoming year? Besides,
who knows?
Yeah,
you have a plan. You can figure it out. I don't know.
No.
I mean, I'm driving this business. We're going to bring it out. I'm going to do a lot of Zoom calls. I'm going to do my Zoom. I'm going to put all my Zoom training on me now.
Good.
I'm going to be the one going out and
Good.
and introducing this product and this solution to the world that I believe needs it. So that's what's going to happen, really. That's what's going to happen.
Well, let us know when you do that, and love to get you back on the show and share. I'd love to have June on the show.
We can work that out.
Love to do that, and I know I've worked with a lot of patients over the years, and a lot of guests who have been her patient as well. And so I know she's busy, so throw that on there.
She's busy, but she's got a huge heart, and she really gives everything to patients. It blows me away, and that she can do that, day after day after day. Blows me away.
I think it's either you have it or you don't. And I remember probably about 5 years ago, when everyone was jumping in this industry, and a well-known woman in this industry wrote in social media. She said, "If you don't have the heart and wanting to help people in this industry, this is not the industry for you." And I hope everyone makes $1 billion, but I don't want people to think it's just a get rich quick industry. And just we deal with so many, being a widow now, but being someone who has been a caregiver, helping patients. I don't want to say I'm well-rounded. Unfortunately, I am, because I've seen the part, and I'm like you, I'm not a doctor, but I look at myself as a health advocate of helping families, avoid the tangled web. When you get a diagnosis of something as severe as cancer, man, Joe, your world comes crashing.
It changes. Yeah, it crashes, of course.
We were at our office, and I used to go to every one of Corinne's appointments, and Corinne was having some back pain and stomach pain, and she was I called her Mary Poppins. Didn't drink, didn't smoke. I mean, that even made it into our wedding vows. And we did 3 blood tests, and our doctors were our friends, and all 3 of them came back negative. You guys are our star pupils. And I'll never forget, we were in Montana, a place in Montana, and I called. I said, "This is not like Corinne. She's not running with me. We're not mountain biking. We're not hiking." And they said, "When you get back?" I said, "The 26th. They said, "Come back on the 27th and we'll do an ultrasound." And on the 29th of June, we're sitting in our office planning my 50th birthday, our wedding anniversary. We had it all planned to be in September in Italy for 3 weeks. Let's just celebrate the 50 years, and we have another 50 years to go. And the phone rang, and it was our doctor, in tears. And it was them saying, "Hey, you have a mass in your pancreas and talk about, oh my gosh, life in all plans with it up. I don't give a shit about this birthday. I don't care. I mean, Corinne was like, your birthday, babe, I don't care about my birthday. I don't care. We'll go back over to Italy. But when you hear those words, you have cancer, and just to show you, and this is I talk to all of our followers this way, cancer doesn't discriminate. Disease doesn't discriminate. And so, people like yourself with June and other great people in this industry that have that in them to help others, as you're mentioning that June has, it means a lot to patients. It means a lot to families.
Oh, it really does. Oh, it's crucial. It's
I can't tell you how many times families say to me, God, this is the first hope we've had. Because sometimes doctors are so black and white. A, B, or C. You do, or A and B. You're gonna do chemo or you're not gonna do chemo. What's my lifespan? Well, you've been given a week to live. So I always share with families, get second opinions, talk about, if you want to use cannabis, talk about it with your family, talk about it with your doctor. So anyway, I can go down that whole road with you as well, but I appreciate you coming on.
And I appreciate your having me on, John.
Coming on. And so let's give your book a plug, as well as your new company that you're going to do. So if you can, and then how people can find you as well, please.
My book is called Brave New Weed. The podcast is the Brave New Weed podcast. You can check it out on the web. You can subscribe as Patreon supporters. We do it for love, not money. So if you want to throw us a couple of dollars a month, please do. I love doing it. So that's Brave New Weed. And the education company is called medicalcannabismentor.com. You can check it out there. And if you want to speak to me, you can reach me through Brave New Weed, through Medical Cannabis Mentor, or through joe@joedolce.com.
Awesome. And are you a social media guy, or are you kind of old school?
It's not my favorite.
Yeah, me neither. It's not my favorite either. It's like people always say to me, you're not on here. I'm like, I'd
rather promote you than me. Let's put it that way. And I'd really rather promote the work we're doing in medical cannabis than anything else.
Right on. So keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you and what you do and coming on the show, and would love to help you out in the future as well. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate your time also.
You too. So Joe Dolce, you can find him at joe@joedolce.com as well. And this is John Malanca with United Patients Group. I hope you enjoyed this, because I certainly did. Be informed and be well, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you. Hi, John Malanca here with United Patients Group. I hope you've enjoyed our videos. Please click like as well as subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Also, follow us on Twitter at Patients Group and on Facebook at United Patients Group, as well as for our podcast. Please click the link in the description below. We'll see you there. Bye-bye.